If I had $1 for every time someone says, I know I need to show up more, but I'd honestly have a podcast empire and a beachfront studio by now. Welcome back to Mommy Mogul Mastery podcast. I'm your host, Shawnee Faye, and today we're digging into the silent income killer that sneaks up on most industry experts, thought leaders, and moms with $1 million messages, and we're talking visibility hesitation. Story time. Let me tell you about my first 40K week in business. You heard that right. First time I made $40,000 in 1 week in my business. I just launched my podcast, except I hadn't. I was at a women's business conference, naively attending as a business coach, thinking I'd leave with clients. I thought it was like a networking type thing. I learned the hard way that it wasn't. What I didn't know at the time was that it's a business conference, or that it is a conference and it's hosted by one person. And so they're really selling from the stage. Note to future self, that is not the place for you to show up and try to get clients. I'm still, in a casual conversation with another attendee, I heard myself say those 5 brave words. I just launched a podcast. I didn't have nothing recorded, friend. No podcast was live. It was not in the ethosphere. Anyways, it was not where the pods are casted. It was nowhere except in my brain. All I had was the gear and a serious case of overthinking. But that moment lit a fire under me, because when I saw her expression and how excited she was, and she was like, oh my God, I've been wanting to start a podcast, and where can I find it? And I was like, oh, I had to walk it back, friend. Like, I haven't quite, put it out there yet, but I did record. I was lying. I really was. But anyways, I went home and I got to recording because I realized you probably should do this, right? So by the time, I returned, now this was in March. By the time I returned to that conference in November, I wasn't just a business coach. I was actually a podcast producer by that point. I had launched my show officially, and I'd started attracting clients who wanted to know how I did it. I didn't have all the answers, but listen, I had taken enough bruises doing it the hard way, and I knew I could help others skip some of those mistakes. I hired a team to help me get my automations together and position myself to take on some clients. I felt like I was ready, I was ready to work that room, and we had a whole plan, me and the team, that I was going to go in there and I was going to get I was going to, just kind of network during the breaks, and I wouldn't be competing with the person who was hosting because I was in a totally different thing, right? They do business coaching and I do podcasting. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. I'll network while I'm there. And, I would go to the comfort of my hotel room at the end of the night and I would reply to all those messages from all the contacts that I had gathered, right? So we worked on the automations. It was really good. And I felt like it was an awesome plan. So there I was back in the room. This time, I had a friend, right, sitting next to me, the same woman that I had claimed my fictional, podcast to months before was with me. And she had saved me a spot, near the front. I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Because she had actually joined the program and had preference. So she saved me a spot near the front. And the host was, doing her thing and, working that stage and really getting everybody's energy up and wanting to buy in and all that stuff. Long story short, she decided she was going to open up the floor for hot seat coaching. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool, right? Maybe I'll get up there. Like, I'm thinking all these things through my head. And for like 7.5 seconds, I debated whether I was actually ready to get up there, because remember, that was not my plan. My original plan was I was going to get up there and I was going to work the room with everybody, not like get up in front of everybody. So my friend leaned over and she whispered, girl, you better get up there. And I did. I just hopped right up. I was surprised that, like, in those 7.5 seconds, no one else had gotten up to the microphone, but I was literally between my friend and the microphone was right to the next side of me. So I immediately get up, slide right up to the microphone, and I'm ready to start talking. And what happened next, honestly, changed everything. So the host called me out on my pricing. She was like, well, what do you do? What does your offer contain? And at that point, it was not what it is today. It's evolved in the last, year and a half or so. But at that time, I was like, oh, $2,100, for like a laundry list of things that I did for the clients. And she was like, I know people who were selling that for $25,000. That's a $25,000 offer. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? But again, confidence didn't really have it. And we can get into the whole, pricing and security thing, but that's another conversation for another day. So here I am feeling like, oh my God, this person just told me that my offer is a $25,000 offer. I can't believe it, right? So I was like, yeah, all right, I'm all in. I'm going to raise the rates. We're going to do it. didn't make sense in my mind at the time, but sure, let's go for it. And then like I could hear all these murmurs in the room, and people were like, oh, wait now, wait a second, So then she was like, oh, wait, y'all want this offer? And everybody in the room, like, well, not everybody, but at least 60 to 70% of the room shouted out like, let me get on this first, right? So they wanted to take advantage of the offer while it was still the $2,100. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like all these people here. I was again thinking I was going to have to work the room one by one, but won't he do it? Won't God show up in the biggest way possible? And so she asked anybody, she said, raise your hand if anybody in this room wants this offer, right? Wants in on it. I was, because I was feeling myself at that point. I said, well, the offer is only good for 2 hours, right? So you got to get in now. If you want this offer, it's only valid for 2 hours because after that, I'm raising my rates. And the room exploded like, yes, we want it. We want it. And she was like, well, how can people get in contact with you? And I was like, oh, well, like I can meet with them and, we can exchange information. She was like, girl, you got Instagram? And I said, yeah, I got Instagram. So she said, you need to give them your Instagram handle. So that's what I did. I gave my Instagram handle. And within 20 minutes of getting back to my hotel room, I had over 100 leads in my DMs. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. As I was walking back to the room, people were stopping me. They were like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see how your business explodes. I'm so proud of you. I'm excited for you. Like, I was just really feeling on such a high, right? So let me pause here. Let this be a lesson that you don't need all the fancy tech to make your first 5 or 6 figures in business, okay? I had never made that amount of money in 1 week in my business. That was like 6 months of my business prior to that, right? So that week was my first BK week in business. My calendar was booked. I was booked and busy, friend, okay? But here's the thing that people ain't really out here talking about. Hey, friend, I know the episode's heating up, but hold up. This is too good not to share. If you've been spinning your wheels trying to stay consistent with your podcast, the problem isn't you. The problem is your process. That's why I created the time-saving podcast Playbook, a free step-by-step resource to help you plan smarter, repurpose faster, and finally build a rhythm that fits your real life. Think of it as your clarity companion, designed to help you streamline your process, cut down the overwhelm, and actually enjoy podcasting again. Go ahead and grab it now at tupacontinappeach.com/playbook or click the link in the description box below. This episode and the time-saving podcast Playbook is sponsored by Orchard Media Group and powered by Tupacons and a Peach LLC, where we help visionary entrepreneurs just like you turn their voice into a vehicle for visibility with strategic done-for-you podcast production. Because being brilliant behind the scenes, it's powerful, but being visible is profitable. All right, let's get back to it. That moment didn't come from me being fully ready. It came from me choosing to be visible before I felt qualified. So it came from believing that if God called me to it, that he'd equip me through it. It came from pushing through hesitation and yes, backing it up later. Like sometimes it's just like that, saying yes now and then really backing it up later. And one of my favorite verses is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. That wasn't just a verse on a sticky note for me. In that moment, it was a reminder that I didn't have to do it alone. God was with me every step of the way. But like I said, that moment changed everything. You ever take a break from something and think it'll be 2 weeks, maybe 3 tops? That's what happened with my podcast. Okay. After that breakthrough $40,000 week, I got busy. Client work picked up, the DMs did not stop, and suddenly podcasting became a thing I'd get back to, once things settled down, except they never did. Like, they never did, right? And that's the thing about momentum. It's loud when it's moving, but it's quiet when it stalls. What started as a few skipped episodes turned into a full blown 7-month hiatus. And I'm actually really embarrassed to say that as a podcast producer, that for 7 months, my podcast suffered and my audience suffered. Well, probably not suffered because really what they do is they just go find somebody else, right? Because they're trying to fill up that space and that void. Anyways, so they're trying to fill that space and that void. So they don't necessarily wait around like, oh my God. I mean, they might wonder and ponder dang, where'd they go? But they're going to fill that spot with someone else, which is why you need to be consistent. It needs to be your voice out there. So I had this 7-month pause. And during that pause, I told myself all the things, that visibility hesitation experts tell themselves all the time. Maybe I should rebrand before I come back. My friends will tell you they was getting sick of me because I was like, oh, maybe I don't want to do Mommy Mogul mastery anymore. Maybe I want to do something else, or maybe my audience changed. Maybe my message did too. Maybe it's too late to pick up where left off, and I'm just gonna scrap it and start something else, right? And all these were just things that were keeping me visibly hesitant. And we rationalize that silence, right? We dress it up as strategy, like, oh, well, I'm just, I'm rethinking some things, I'm re-strategizing before I get back out there, when really it's just fear dressed in productivity's clothing. And here's what really hit me. The longer I stayed silent was the louder that the doubt got. Not from my audience, but from me. Like, I didn't need no help. I didn't need no help from nobody else to be in my own head about why I couldn't move forward, right? I started questioning if I still had something worth saying, if people even cared, if I still had authority in this space. Like, I literally helped build this space, and I was wondering if I still had authority, right? And that's where visibility hesitation becomes so dangerous. Not because it means you're lazy, not because of anything like that, but it makes you forget your own voice, and it makes you forget your value. Here's what I need. I need you to refuse to let visibility hesitation steal your voice. I need you to visualize it as if it's actually a person, right? Me, mug 'em, okay? Visualize that hesitation and tell it, I need you to go have several seats, like several seats. I'm unapologetically passionate about this because every single time I've had my back against the wall, it is my voice that got me through it. It never let me down. I'm going to tell you the real about what came from that messy 7-month realization. I wasn't tired of podcasting. I love podcasting, right? I was tired of trying to show up perfectly. I was tired of overcomplicating my own visibility, because once I got out of the idea that every episode had to be this massive production, once I remembered why I started the podcast in the first place, I found my voice again. But let's not pretend like it ain't cost me, right? Let's get real, because it definitely did. That momentum that I had built in March, it slowed to a crawl by the fall. Okay, Christmas was looking real dismal Christmas time. I stopped planting seeds, so there was no harvest to reap. No new content meant no new leads. No new leads meant no new opportunities. And no podcast episodes meant no new touch points. No fresh trust being built with my audience. And if I'm being really honest, I was embarrassed to pop back up after 7 months, like, hey girl, hey, y'all remember me? You know what I mean? I was embarrassed by that, but that's what visibility hesitation does. It doesn't just silence your podcast, Mike. It silences your entire strategy. It convinces you that it's better to stay quiet and risk being messy or inconsistent. But listen, I say it all the time, being brilliant behind scenes is powerful, but being visible is profitable. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. Being brilliant behind the scenes is powerful, but being visible is profitable. You don't have to show up loud. You don't got to do that. You don't have to dance on reels or, become a thought leader overnight. And I mentioned this in my last episode, so go ahead and check that out. But you do have to plant seeds. You do have to speak up, even when it's not perfect. You do have to create a rhythm that you can actually stick to. And that rhythm starts with recognizing that visibility hesitation isn't a personality trait. That's not just who you are, right? I hear people say, well, I'm just an introvert. That's just how I am. First of all, I understand that introverts are, seen as people who don't like to be out in the world, and, they want to kind of reserve to themselves. So that's okay, right? You can be in your room, in your office, just like I am right now in my office, and I'm talking to y'all. And I ain't got to be outside in nobody's world, but I can still be visible. So I don't want to hear that it's like, oh, that's just who I am. It's a habit, and it's definitely a habit that you can unlearn. So the problem is not that you can't be consistent, because newsflash, you are consistent. Consistently delivering for your clients, consistently keeping your promises to others, and consistently putting yourself and your platform last. That's the real issue. You're consistent at what feels urgent, not essential for your growth. You need more hustle. You need a rhythm that supports your visibility without sacrificing everything else. So let me ask you this. What's really been keeping you from showing up consistently? Is it time, tech, or a little fear being dressed up as, I'm just not ready yet? Ask yourself the question and answer it honestly. You ain't got to tell me, right? You can if you want to. You can go ahead and email me. I'll leave my link below, and we can have a conversation about it. Or you can book a podcast strategy call. I'll leave that link below too, and we can talk about it. Or you can just answer the question for yourself. What's really been keeping me from showing up consistently? Naming it is the first step to reclaiming your voice and building something that actually lasts. So if your mic is collecting dust, it happens, and downloads are down, and you feel like I'm just going to be off the grid for a little bit. You're not a failure. You're just stuck in pause mode. But friend, listen to me. I need you to press play again. Now, I told you, we done talked, and I done told you how visibility hesitation has cost me. But let me tell you what it's really costing you. It's not just downloads. It's just not brand awareness or social engagement. It's momentum. It's opportunities. It's a consistent, quiet authority that builds when you keep showing up. Visibility hesitation robs you of the compounding power of consistency. Every time you pause, second guess, hold back that episode or the idea that you've been sitting on, you're delaying the very thing you say you want: impact, influence, and income. I've worked with women who have had brilliant frameworks, powerful offers, and deep client results, but nobody knew. Not because they weren't good at what they did, but because they were still planning, still figuring it out, still wanting to feel fully ready. Listen, friend, your people don't need perfect. They need consistent. They need your voice in their ears, reminding them that change is possible, that their dreams are doable, that someone out there gets it. And here's another hard truth. You don't need more confidence to be visible. I said it. You don't need more confidence to be visible. You need clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence builds consistency, and consistency is what leads to conversion. That's the rhythm that we're building inside of the remote podcast program. I call it RP3 because, baby, ain't nobody got time to say all them words, right? It isn't just about getting a podcast out there. It's about creating a system that helps you show up regularly without burning out, breaking down, or overthinking. We've launched dozens of shows and produced hundreds of episodes for powerhouse women just like you, visionaries with big voices and even bigger missions. And through every launch, every rebrand, every comeback story, one truth has remained the same. Consistency doesn't come from hustle. It comes from structure. That's exactly what RP3 delivers. So you can stop second guessing every episode and start showing up with clarity and ease and authority. Because when you're visible strategically, you stay top of mind for people. And when you stay top of mind, you become the go-to in that space. I know that hesitation can feel like protection. I know that. You feel like, well, I'm just, I have this big dream and I don't want to just put it out there and have it look messed up or have it be imperfect and all this stuff. So it can feel like, protection. You're struggling with your consistency. And it's not because you lack expertise. Perhaps you've even been staying on top of trends and creating impulsive content without a targeted plan. You're stuck because nobody handed you a rhythm that works for your life. That's why I created the time-saving podcast playbook, and I'll leave the links below. I created this so you can stop overthinking and finally build a podcast routine that actually sticks. Full transparency. This is me asking for your email address so that we can keep the conversation going and giving you something in exchange that will change your life. It will transform your life and your business. So grab your free copy. I'll leave the links down below. It's packed with the same strategies that I use with my private clients and that I even use for myself because your voice shouldn't stay stuck on pause. And if you're already thinking about handing over the editing and the tech and planning and you already know, like, listen, I'm past this phase and I need some real help, then it's time for a real conversation. So go ahead and book your free podcast clarity call. I'll leave the link for that in the description box below as well. And we'll map out what support you actually need so you can stay visible, consistent, and in your zone of genius. If this resonated, share it with a friend and tag me online. I'd love to hear and cheer you on. And this episode is sponsored by Orchard Media Group, powered by 2 pecans and a peach, where visionary entrepreneurs amplify their message without the burnout. You show up and record, and we'll handle the rest. And remember, being brilliant behind the scenes is powerful, but being visible is profitable. I'll catch you in the next episode.